Are you ready, ma'am? Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to. Yes, it's 6 o'clock. Can you believe it? I know. All right, today is Tuesday, February 14th, 6 p.m. February? Nope, I'm sorry. January. Just trying to move things along. Time now is 6 o'clock, and the City of Williston City Council meeting has come to order. Miss Roll, can you? Okay. Miss Wright, could you please call roll?
Mayor Goodman,
I'm sorry, I'm here.
President Cox,
Hello.
Vice President Hines,
Here.
Councilmember Jones,
Here.
Councilmember Martin,
Here.
Councilmember Riccio, City Manager Terry Bavard,
Here.
Attorney Kirsten Ballou,
Online.
City Clerk Latricia Wright. I am here, and all other staff.
Present.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for coming this evening. All right. Opening prayer and pledge of allegiance to the flag. Mr. Mayor Charles Good.
Join me if you choose. Lord, we gather together this night in a special meeting to decide the direction that the city is going to go ahead. Lord, I know each one of our councils have agonized over this and looked at all the information, and each one has worked very hard on it, and I want to just hold them up to you and ask you to bless them for their hard work. I ask you to be with all the people that have attended tonight and help them to get home safely. I ask this in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Need some water? All right. Item 1. Addition, deletions, changes to the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion?
So I would move the agenda be approved as presented.
All right. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
All right. We got a motion. We got a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
4-0. Public participation. This is your first of 2 opportunities to address the council. At this time, anyone in the audience can come to the podium and speak for 5 minutes on any other topic than what's on the agenda. Okay, seeing none. All right. Item 3. New business. A. Possible or discussion. City manager applicant short list results. Everybody got their list? Okay. Cool. All right. So each of us have a list that was emailed to us with the average scores. And starting at the top, working down, Michael Grillhart. Next was Timothy Day, Susan L. Audette. Good one. Paul Booth, and then Kyle Drummer, Christopher Cowart, Brian Carney, Chase Wagner, James Weaver, Juan Fernandez, Lynn Gellin, Breeden Christopherson, and Sarah Hanna Freak. So, if we're thinking about this here, if we want to break this down into the interview process, I would say the Michael, Timothy, Susan, and Paul were the double digits and scored 10 and above. That's where we would start with those four interviewing first. Yes, sir.
Have you decided where you're going to stop? Yes, that's on that.
I'd rather
Um,
go through the nines.
We'd rather do the interviews all the way through.
And like maybe do 3 one day and 4 the next. Or whatever.
Okay. Because,
Why? Because none of them quite meet the bill.
Dragging out the process for some people, myself being one of them, who have multiple days of interviewing is just kind of really difficult. And I'm not saying that that's an excuse, but like, we can't interview multiple on maybe 7 different days and then cut the work down.
Well, that's what I said. I said 2 days.
Okay, but what
And
people
all from one
understand
day
is
or the
some-
other.
Some people have jobs and can't do it on 2 days.
There wouldn't have to be 2 days in a row.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I'm just saying. Like,
Well, that's the job we're here to do.
so,
well,
so,
you do your job and I'm going to do within my own degree. That's just my opinion.
yes, sir. Mr. Mayor.
My question is basically along the same line. If you interview the top 3 and you have a consensus that you found your city manager, are you still going to go ahead? Or are you going to withhold making the decision until you've done all?
Oh no, I'm not going to do them all.
No, sir.
I mean, when you finish up all the 9 and above, then make a decision. Are you holding yourself that you cannot make a decision until all the interviews are finished?
Whoever we decide to interview, I would say we don't.
President Trump.
I would say that if in that top group, if we find somebody, I don't see the need to move forward. Now that's my own
Is that what
personal.
you're asking?
That's what I'm asking.
Oh, I thought you meant if in the first day you found somebody you wanted, would you do the second?
No, I'm asking very clearly. Same thing that Alexa was talking about. You've got 3 top tier candidates. If you interview those or whoever, and you found the one that you want, would you continue ahead and interview all 9 before you make the decision? Just information. And you say you will not.
No.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
For those of you that have been through the interviewing process before, about how long does each interview take? About an hour.
That's what we would allocate an hour and put 15 minutes between each one. That's what we did before, and it was plenty long enough.
Mr. Brevard, do you have any wisdom? Of course.
Words of wisdom.
Yes, sir.
Well, I don't think this is going to be as easy as it was last time by picking the guy in the back of the room, which is kind of how I got the job. But, you know, my thing is if I think y'all have to decide on, and I know you already talked about it, that you figure out where you're going to stop interviewing, and if you do find obviously a good candidate from that point, then you would stop the process and you have your 1, 2, and 3. We have had before where we had 1, 2, and 3, as the mayor will tell you, and we ranked them and said, okay, this is our first guy, and basically he bailed on it. And then we went to the second person, and I don't think they took the job. And I think eventually Jackie got the job. So, you know, but you know, it's really whatever the wishes are of the council. If y'all want to start with the top 3 and interview them, you know, I do do understand Alexa's comments about she only has a certain amount of time to do it. You know, for some people on this council, Monday is the only day. The problem is if you have to pick Monday as the interview day, which is convenient for a couple of city council members, that limits your days, and then eventually, you know, you're running up against a hard timeline for me, which we've all talked about.
In terms of the hour of the day that we do interview, can they be early morning, like this timeline, or do you guys prefer to have them earlier in the day?
When you say you guys, doesn't matter to us, because
Okay.
obviously staff will be here
You guys
eventually. It will be y'all, whatever y'all decide, would be beneficial.
I guess my question is that atypical in the interviewing process to have it later in?
There is no typical.
Okay. Okay.
Sometimes the city manager walks out the door screaming. Sometimes he walks out the door threatening. Sometimes he walks out the door talking. That's the situation.
So in this case, I think, you know, and I don't recall, Mr. Mayor, how last time y'all did it, but I'm assuming your interviews were done during the daylight hours. Right. So I would suspect that probably during the daylight hours, you know, on a day that's convenient for everyone. Understanding that, you know, there's some people simply cannot get off at the other time. Some people have to take time off of work to be here. Some people, fortunately, you know, well, I don't think any of you are retired. So, it's going to be difficult to pick a day, you know, but you know, some people can, like I said, have PTO time. Some people simply, I have this day to do it, that's the only day I can do it, and hopefully the council will recognize that's one of those days. I don't know how we did the last one because I wasn't here. So, do you recall?
Well, Councilor Jones and I have been through many of them. I've been through 5 city managers. I mean, even
At least that.
you know, it's not catastrophic.
Right.
Just go through the numbers. You guys, I'm sure.
And I know you've already essentially made up your mind, but the reason I say I'd like to interview more than 3 is because when I look at this, Miss Hines' top 3 are not in the top 3 in the totals. Miss Martin's top 3 are not in the top 3 in the totals. And my top 3 are not in the top 3 in the
How
totals.
the heck did the top 3 get in the top 3?
I don't know, but if you look at it, look right here at the comparison,
that
you'll
new
see it
math,
for
right?
yourself. And that's why I think, and when you drop down so that they are in the top 3, and I'm talking about there's some 13s and some 10s under Miss Hines and myself and Martin. You can't just do 1 9 without doing all of them.
No, ma'am. I
That-
agree with that.
That's why I say I cut it off at 9 and go up.
Do the top 3 and see where it
I
goes.
really feel like that's the only fair thing to do. Because your top 3 are not there, my top 3 are not there, and Miss Hines' top 3 are not there.
And my top 3 are
So,
not there.
And your top 3 are not there either.
all
Okay?
right, so then my question is, why did we do a survey? Why did
Because
we
that's the
go
way
through
somebody
this order?
decided to do it. Normally we
HR.
bring them here and discuss it and come up with the ones we want to
This
interview.
reeks of HR.
Yeah, well, it does, but that's what we decided to do.
Well, Mr. Brian Carney, we would interview him for sure, because he's I believe his application was a veteran.
Well, we wouldn't if he's a 9, and you're cutting it off at the top 3. The top
No, I
3.
didn't say top 3.
Well,
I'm
that's
saying
what everybody else said. That's why I'm
10
arguing the point.
from 10 and above, we would do that. That's 1, 2, that's 4. And if we interview Mr. Carney, then we would interview those 5 people to start.
How do you know the rest of these people aren't
What are you
veterans?
talking about? Give them a merit to have a city manager position.
Because we give veterans preference. It's part of our.
Right.
We
Like,
have-
I get it. I support the veterans, but like, we need.
It's part of federal contracts that we have.
So, Mr. Cox,
Yes, sir.
President Cox,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
you are not going to decide. If you get your top 3 in this list, and you guys decide who you want out of that top 3, you don't need to go over. If
Correct.
you haven't, then you can
Because that's why I figured if we interviewed them, just hypothetical here, let's say 2 weeks from Monday or 2 weeks we interview, and we don't get a group, we don't get anybody from that group, or we get somebody, then we just go on from there. See, I'd say take group. Yes, sir. Yep.
Has any member of this council spoke to anyone on this list?
Thank you, sir.
Take
I
that
know,
back, Mr.
I know
Coward.
people on this list.
No,
Yeah.
I'm just asking a question. Have you spoke to them about this? I'm just asking because I inquired if the people that made this list had verbal conversations.
I personally made it a point not to speak to any of the candidates.
So no one that made the list has had a conversation with any of the people on the list. And no council
Well,
member
Define conversation. I said hello.
about becoming city manager.
Nope.
I thought it was really easy.
No. You said any conversation. I said hello to Mr. Coward earlier.
Yeah, I
That's
talk
a
to Chris all the time we go to church
Yeah, I talked to
together.
So I think if you're narrowing down your question to staff, of course I can't speak for Brooke, but she is online.
I thought my question was clear.
And I think my answer was
People
very
that made
clear,
this list.
and I think my answer was very clear to you also.
No.
The answer is no.
Okay, that's all.
And I can tell you, I go to church with Mr. Coward, and I see Sue Baudette quite often at chamber functions.
But I understand what the mayor's.
But what's the reason for that?
I would be happy to tell you the reason. I just curious.
Okay.
But I'm going to be perfectly frank. This, I have a problem with this entire. I have a problem with having them out of 51 people go through and pick out a meeting. I have a problem with the questions, the way they were interpreted. I've been through every one of them that we were given, and I find the whole thing very uncomfortable because what you're doing is you're using someone else's idea of who you're looking for, and you're giving these people preference over each other based on somebody else's idea of what they should be that day. You've got to talk to the people that know what they're doing. That's my opinion. You act.
So I beg to differ. When
Okay.
you're looking at applications and trying to determine equally and fairly if somebody is qualified for a position, you have to have the qualifications. Now, granted, based on what our qualifications are, none of them meet the qualifications, the entire qualifications. But based on the qualifications that we had listed, these are the ones that come closest to meeting what we have set forth. I had a couple of questions related to a couple of the questions that we had to look at when we scored. And basically, it was the same information that we said we were looking for in an applicant. It just, to me, read a little bit differently. But once I got the clarification, I understood why. Now, we sat here and we came up with standards. If there was an issue about the standards, it should have been said then. I had some, but we had already voted, which is fine. So, this is what we have. And secondly, I don't believe that we should be going through 6, 7, 8, 9 people. We just need to figure out where our line is. And be careful, because we do have to come back here and sit here. And there are a lot of different things that are going on in people's lives. Yes, we were elected to these positions, but we also still have things in our lives that we have to do as well. So we have to have some sort of common balance, not just say that this is what you were hired for, because it's never that simple. So, I say at this point we just kind of discuss how many people related to what's up there we want to look at. And still take into account how many of these people met most of the qualifications.
And I know too, when you start calling them to arrange an interview, there's 3 or 4 that are not going to be able to come. Even if you cut it at 9, which would include all of our top 3, by the way.
As to what?
There'll be a couple that won't come. Yeah, that's right. Or they're not going to move here, or the salary's not what they want it to be, or they are from out of state. I mean, there's one.
Was the salary posted?
It was, but there's already a couple right here that are already negotiating. If you read their cover sheets and everything, I know y'all probably didn't get the whole. I've got all 52 of them. I don't know if y'all, but these are the ones that are on the short list. These are all 52 of them over here. There are some of them that are already negotiating for salary for one reason or the other. Like, I'm retired military, I don't need benefits, I don't need retirement, I don't need health care, so I won't want that. There's some that are already doing that. And it had a lot to do with where I rank them.
And that's fine. They have a right to do that as well.
They do.
So we just need to figure out how many people we're going to interview based on what is up there.
So if I could ask a question, because Ms. Jones did get all the candidates, were there any that were all right? And
Of
the
all
ones,
52, I was there with.
Let them finish.
yeah, and she actually helped me there. And the ones that you got at least met very close to the minimum qualification.
At least enough to get the score on the page.
Okay.
I found nothing wrong. No disqualifying comments, ability, not safe.
Mhm.
And frankly, you find a job to do this,
So I'm in agreement with Darthiness, that, I'm comfortable with the ranking system. That's what we established to help us get a little further and to kind of give us the ability to prioritize who we interview first. And if we cut it off at 9, that's 7 candidates. So if we could break that into 2 groups, a group of 4 and a group of 3, maybe starting with the top 4 and then going to the next 3, the 9s. In terms of scheduling, I know for me, and I think I can speak for Alexa because we're in the same industry, Monday is a great day for us. For the rest, for the 3 of you, is Monday an option for an interview day?
I'll just change it with somebody on the day off.
And we're talking about during the day, interviews during the day.
Yeah, I mean that you could do it. It's like the mayor said, you could set whatever day you want. But yes, normally these kind of interviews are during the daytime.
And mainly because when they come, if they come from out of county or out of state even, you have to put them up. We don't normally pay for their hotel room, but they would have to pay for a hotel room. I know, but if it's in the daytime, they don't normally have to. I'm not saying, did not say that. Of course they will.
if you've interviewed all these people and you have found your preferred candidate to go continue now,
Yes, sir.
So Darthiness,
Why would you continue down the list?
Yeah, I might put it out again.
Yeah, I mean, if the people that we have selected to interview, we don't find a candidate in there, then it needs to go back out. We don't continue down the list because they're not qualified if they're further down the list.
And I've never seen so many police officers, so many IT people, so many car salesmen. I mean, if you look at all of them, that's what we got here. And that's the majority of them. Bankers.
ma'am.
Got a lot of bankers.
how are
in here, too.
Mondays for you in your life?
I can rearrange my schedule for Monday.
So I think that gives us at least a good launching point to say if we schedule for whenever is appropriate. Yeah, whatever is an appropriate timeline to give the candidates, heads up. and that we can be available on Monday for a set amount of time. And just go through the first 4, and if we have our, big winner at that point and we decide this is the person, great, but if not, we continue on.
Well, I'm going to throw a little kink
They
into
set them
this.
Okay.
all up.
All right.
They set them all up at once.
Reading online about one of the candidates, one of the things that the council did, and I think we should do this, mainly because the staff has to work with the manager.
Mhm.
So if we pick somebody,
Mhm.
I would like for the staff to interview that person.
Oh, like a second interview would be with the
Would be
staff.
with them. Miss Tricia, Stacy, Beth, IT, electric, water, all those guys. They got to work there. So with the department heads, interviewing that person. I know it's something that probably hadn't been done here in the past, but after reading that, I was like, you know what? That makes perfectly good sense.
We've done that as a second round. But we would do just with the council and the staff work together, of course. But the questions were actually asked by the council. But what we did as a second interview, like if we did full group and we narrowed it down to 3, then and that's kind of what I'm used to doing. I'm used to doing 7 or 8 and narrowing it to 3. And then what we did was we had a social, and we invited the Chamber of Commerce members and our staff. And we had they mingled together in calls to kind of see who fit the bill, who fit the community.
So
We have
You-
done that a couple of times.
you guys said that we have veterans preference, right?
We do have that reserved.
So if the person who is a veteran is in that group of 9, then he gets preference over those 9, right?
Not mine.
What is it?
And I'm not sure we don't have more than one veteran.
I think you got one.
So if we're basing it on that average, it would make him equal. Am I wrong or am I right?
He doesn't.
Yeah.
If he's still a 9, he's still a 9. This is the top 9.
So in the VA, if I'm not mistaken, when somebody has veterans preference, they get an extra amount of points. Their spouse gets an extra amount of points. So say that we're giving him veterans preference, what are our points is he allotted? Because if that's the case, then he gets extra points on top of that 9.
This is a question.
Yeah, he actually.
So if we want to talk about veterans preference
Yeah.
and do it right,
Yeah.
let's do it right.
So, Florida State Statute 295.08 specifies the actual point that their individuals are supposed to get. They're in the 15, 20, and 30 point range. So we did not score for that, right? But if it says if you have a scoring section, then basically you set it up in favor of doing something like that. Is what Florida State Statute.
Yeah, we should have had a point system that gave extra points when we were doing it.
Right. It also says you may waiver post-secondary education requirements for a veteran if all things are equal, as the mayor said. If all things are equal and you're requiring a 4-year degree and he has a 2-year, you cannot mark him down for not having, or her, I apologize, for not having that. The statute reads pretty clearly. I'm just going to read it. Those disabled veterans, person's got to be disabled to begin with, who have served on active duty. Yeah, Florida State Statute 295.07. So the state and its political subdivision shall give preference in appointment and retention to positions of employment to those disabled veterans who have served on active duty in any branch of the United States Armed Services have received an honorable discharge, have established the presence, existence of a service-connected disability that is compensable under public laws administered by the United States Department of Veteran Affairs. Or, and it goes on to talk about spouses, wives, things like that. And then I read you some snippets out of the other. Yes, sir. Good. It does say disabled. Those disabled veterans.
Is this
Yeah.
what you're reading from?
No, I'm reading from the Florida State statute of the state of
This is
Florida.
actually our application.
Right.
It talks about it in here.
And what does it say there?
And this guy right here is also a veteran. Carney, it is Carney Day. A veteran with a service-connected disability who is eligible for or receiving compensation, disability, retirement, or pension under public laws administered by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs.
And the person you're arguing for, you gave a 6. So how is it even relevant if he's a veteran or not?
I'm not arguing for him.
You are arguing for him. You're trying to railroad everybody into getting what you want done, and that's not what we're going to
I
do.
am not.
The person
he
that you're
wasn't-
arguing
okay.
for has
All
a
right,
6.
okay.
What is
That's-
the
So
problem?
it's a 6, so that doesn't even matter. It would put him up to a 7. That's still not one of the
I am
highest
not
people.
arguing to give him lower. My point was a 9, not a 6.
It literally
I said
says
9 all along.
Jones 6.
No, we're talking one on average.
Your name that says Jones, and then Brian Carney. You
Yes,
gave him a
I
6
gave
out
him
of
a 6.
15,
He's
so that's
not-
a 50%. And you're arguing for this guy to get an interview
I am
when you
Okay.
gave him a 6.
How much?
Enough.
I said cut it off at a 9. I didn't say cut it off at a 6.
You gave him a 6.
I did.
Exactly, but you're arguing
I am
because
not.
you want him interviewed because his average is a 9 when you are the one that gave him a 6. So if he was a veteran, that would put him to a 7, which is 50%.
Mr. Benton,
So you're getting him not
Steve.
even somebody that's qualified.
Mr. Steve.
Yes, sir. I would just I'd like to remind the council, if they didn't know, when it comes to disabled veterans and things like that, 0% disability still qualifies as disability in some cases. So if they are a disabled veteran and they're registered with the VA and they have 0% disability, you would still have to treat them as a disabled veteran.
In this particular case, Mr. Carney, who retired as a chief warrant officer too, or honorably discharged being disabled. I have no idea the percentage. It doesn't matter to me.
Right. If he's retired, I think that qualified as well, right?
No, it specifically says disabled.
Okay.
But he can be retired and disabled, so it's the same thing.
And it goes on to give others too.
Yeah.
You can also be the spouse of a veteran. You could be the veteran of any war that served in active duty. This is just straight out of our Williston application.
You're saying different things than he says.
Well, this is out of our own application.
Okay, I'm just pointing out the difference.
And this man filled it out. It's the only reason I have it in the thing here.
Miss Ballou, since you're online, would you like to throw some words of wisdom to this?
Is so keenly referencing. The very first thing that it says is that you all are to put together as a subdivision a policy. So Williston will have a policy on this, and because of that, I see that Brooke has her hand up in our little meeting, and I know that she has been wanting to say something. So I imagine that that's probably what she's going to say. So I'll hand it over to her.
Thank you, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Who is this
Yes, we
person?
can.
Okay. So what Ms. Jones is reading is basically the criteria that allows you as an applicant to select if you are requiring or requesting veterans preference. That is exactly what Mr. Brevard had read out of the criteria of that. It doesn't give you the protocols or the procedures in which we have in place, excuse me, for dealing with veterans preference. The secondary state statute that Mr. Brevard read was that if we have a scoring for our applicants, and we do not have a scoring across the board for any applicants for the veterans preference. That is the secondary state statute that Mr. Brevard read. So with moving forward, I do not have in front of me any of the procedures for how the city has previously dealt with veterans preferences. And that is something that I can bring to you tomorrow and get with you all individually about. But so I think that this would be obviously my first procedures in dealing with hiring a city manager and having the veterans preference. So again, there's not a procedure that we have in front of us saying that this is how we have dealt with this veterans preference prior to now. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Except
ma'am.
what's in our application, I would think.
Well, it's in there to show that you're qualified or you have the qualifications to be considered to have veterans preference. That is just what has been in our application for years, to be honest with you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Okay, so it seems to me that rather than arguing this at the moment, what would be a logical way forward would be for Brooke and Kirsten and Harriet and Patricia, whoever needs to be involved in this, to find out who qualifies as a veteran in the 13 that we got, to add the appropriate point for that person, because it would be a point added to their average. It doesn't matter if it's a point added to all of our scores because they're a veteran, then it'll be a point added to the average at the end, and adjust the list accordingly, and we still proceed forward with interviewing our top 4, and then moving on from there, just in the sake of breaking it into 2 days. I'm happy to interview all top 7 in 1 day if necessary, but I don't know that that's feasible. But I don't feel like this is something that we need to decide about whether that's a policy. We don't need to be discussing that and wasting our time discussing that. That should be something that Brooke, Kirsten, Terry, and Latricia sort out and adjust this. So can we agree maybe
Yes.
just to move forward with the top 4?
Yep. Anybody have a hand up there?
Anyone else?
Okay.
I just have a question for the attorney. My understanding, which could easily be wrong, is that you cannot do less than a state statute. Is that accurate?
So you're kind of far away from your microphone, but I think that what your question was is, are you able to do less than what the state statute says? Was that
Thank
the
you.
question?
That's exactly my question.
Okay. Yes. In some cases and no in some cases. It depends on, really the requirement is you can't be more or less restrictive when the statute says you can't be more or less restrictive. So in this instance, what is required is that we put together a policy. And so it seems like we do have a policy regarding how we put these together. That's really what the criteria is. The rest of the information in the statute, and I apologize. The rest of the information in the statute is informative regarding how those policies can be put together. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. I just love to talk to lawyers because yes sometimes and no sometimes are the same answer. Now
I
that,
also
well
love to
done. Well
Thank
done.
you.
I have no other questions. Thank you.
All right. Before, yes, Mr. Right.
I just want to let you all know, August 6, 2020, the interviews that were scheduled for the candidates were around after 5 o'clock. So it was Wednesday, August 26, 2020. There was a candidate at 5:15. The second one was at 6:15. Thursday, August the 27th of 2020. The first candidate was at 5:15. The second one was at 6:15. So they were in the evening.
Did you say
And you
you're
only had
doing
4.
2?
No, I was just saying when we did the interviews back in 2020 from my email, I'm looking at it right now, and those are the times that they had chosen was in the afternoon. I'm sorry, the evening.
That helps.
All right.
Maybe easier for some candidates to come in.
So before we go any farther, remember, we're representing the city. Candidates could dial in, us not know who they are, and they see us the way that we're acting. They're not going to want to come here. So, let's be civil, discuss it, and let's move on.
So, Kirsten, I have a question. Can you hear me? Can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
So, if we go ahead with the top 4 candidates, does that put us in trouble related to Mr. Carney? Of not.
No. So what Brooke and I will do, and I'm going to put no and just put a little asterisk by that. Brooke and I are going to take a look through the policies, and we'll go ahead and take a stab at what we have for Williston. Make sure that all appropriate points are given. But you all, if that puts Mr. Carney in the top 4 or even right below the top 4, then we'll let you all know, and we can reevaluate accordingly. But I think the point's been made earlier that there's really, the requirement boils down to all things being equal, veterans receive preference, or all things being similarly equal, veterans receive preference. And I haven't looked at this individual's materials, but it seems like there's pretty much a consensus that all things are not equal or near equal. But if that changes your top 3 or 4, then Brooke and I will definitely let you know once we account for the appropriate percentages.
All right.
Okay.
So do we? Yes.
Oh, that was my question. Is the next step for someone to make a motion that we continue with the interviews with top 4 pending their reorganization of the top 4 if necessary?
Motion.
Oh, I make a motion that we interview the top 7 candidates, starting with the top 4, pending any numerical changes that Brooke and Kirsten make based on our policy.
And based, if we find somebody, then we stop. If we find somebody, well, great.
7. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then first, got a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yeah. 4-1.
You didn't ask me.
So
Right.
The one is
next.
So
Miss Riccio was the one that. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Aye. Those opposed say no.
no.
3-2. Next is interviewing process. Item B. So, is it we are having them to come here? We're gonna have them here.
So the intention of item B is that. So we will, myself and staff, we can, after we get the final numbers, reach out to all of you guys if what dates we want to, what dates you would like to interview, what time would you like to start, which you've had some discussion on having an hour interview, a 15-minute break, and then another interview, was some discussion that I did pull from this conversation. And then we can have them in person. Now, what if you run into a situation where you have somebody out of state? Do you want to only have interviews in person? Do you want to try to schedule them by video? That's kind of what the intent of item B is try to make sure that we understand how you would like to further the process with the interviews.
President Mayor.
Kirsten, did I hear you correct that that you feel that we need to negotiate? Don't we set a date? And if they don't come, they don't come.
Right. That's what I
to.
Yeah, we don't need to negotiate with them on a date.
We'll give them.
No.
Normally we give them 2 dates, and they come one or the other.
Okay, I don't care. I just want to make sure we're not going to try to negotiate with each individual to try to create a consensus. It's going to get very
No,
burdensome. Yes,
I
ma'am.
agree with that, Mayor. That wasn't my intention, and I'm sorry if it came across that way. It was not that. It is. We'll set the dates. The council will set the dates on which you want to interview. Those will be the dates that we fill with these applicants. I just want to make sure that we want to do all the interviews in person. So if we do have individuals who are not able to be here, that is just the option, is we are doing interviews in person.
Do they need to vote on it, Kirsten?
The style in which we conduct the interviews, I would
Whether
say
they
that
have
we
to
need
be here or not be here.
I think we at the very least need to have a consensus on that. I think a motion would be appropriate to solidify.
Or a conversation.
I think the only one, just looking at him real quick, there's only one that's from Missouri. Now, whether he has any connection in Florida now, I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out. Yeah, he's
I
still
have not either, Ms. Jones, to be honest with you. When
He's
I looked
still-
through them, that was what one of my concerns was, is that individual also.
he last worked in Missouri, but he says that he hasn't worked there since March of 24. So he may be
Correct.
retired somewhere. That would be Mr. Wagoner.
He's
But
an
he
eight,
would. He's
so
an 8,
he's
so
not.
he wouldn't.
He didn't make the cut. Oh yeah, you're right. Never mind. The other one's from Utah. I don't think he made the cut either.
I would say all
Correct.
in
It was
person.
just barring that if there was any
The rest of them are
residential changes on your top, that was, we have it already decided that we are going to do interviews with in person, not over a meeting over video, if that is what the council chooses.
All right. And, well, for me, that's correct. Anybody else? Sorry. No, I was just saying, for me, I said correct, and then I was getting ready to talk, and I said, well, for me, it's correct, but I don't know about anybody else. I don't want to speak for others. Okay. So, and this is what I need to say. If I'm going to take a day off to do interviews, I would prefer to do all the interviews, as opposed to coming back.
So they're giving them a choice of 2 days.
Yeah.
Do them all at once.
Yep.
Because when I take off, I lose money. So if I'm going to do that, I prefer to do it all
Well,
in one
Monday's
day.
not my normal day off either, so I'm pretty much with you. If
Same
you're
way,
I'm gonna
yeah.
take off on Monday. Let's do it. Let's do
Are
some
you
in the morning
available
and some
all
in the
day on a
afternoon.
Monday? You're not. It matters. It's just a consensus of all.
Yep, it's the same way with me. I got to make adjustments, but we'll do it.
Is Monday the best day for you?
We will get all the interviews done in a day. Sure. We'll just get all the interviews done in a day.
But if you want to do 7 interviews, that's 8 hours.
That's why we normally do
Okay,
2
so
days.
I'm sorry. So I understand that we want to do it on a Monday, and you want to try to get them all scheduled within the hours of that day. Is that
That's what I'm
the
hearing. Yeah.
consensus?
Miss Darkness, could you do like 4 on a Monday day and the other, or maybe 3 on a evening, a different evening? Because somebody evening, better morning for them as well. And then you wouldn't have to take off for 1 day.
Right, but I'm still taking off, and then going into a night. I mean, it's enough. Don't get me wrong.
That's the same.
I mean, it's kind of hard to say either this day or something, you know.
No, it's not. That's how we interview. That's how we yeah.
Usually you say
Where
on
I'm
this day.
from now, like we're interviewing this day,
Well, we have a lot of good candidates to begin with, so, you know, we start there, and if for some reason we feel like we haven't found the right candidate, we can explore an additional day if necessary, or an evening, or whatever works, but we have a lot of really good candidates, so I say start with one day, and go from there.
Yep.
And
Well,
quick
you just
question.
said some people probably not going to show up anyway, so
Right.
then it won't matter.
Right. Quick question, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
Would it make sense, and again, sorry, rookie here, but would it make sense for during that day that people come for the interview for the heads of the departments to also have scheduled time to meet with them? Again, not us, because obviously we'll be potentially booked up, but and then give us their feedback, or should that happen in the presence of the city council?
Tell you what, let me do this. Staff, would you all like to talk to a person that maybe is in the one or two of the finalists? Would you all like to talk to them and give us your input?
Always move them from an interview to the other room to have a vote round with them.
Would y'all like to do that, or do you want to just have your time to be able to ask them questions?
Want to interview them in here, or do you want to go over there and have beer?
Are they interviewing them, or are they just having a conversation?
If you're going to try to interview them all one day, y'all can take time out of your day to talk to them. That's my preference.
Miss Wright, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page too, is that these interviews will have to be advertised because it'll be an open interview, correct?
Yes, I would have to advertise that we are having interviews.
Well, let me ask you a question. This is my only concern. And Kirsten, maybe you can help me out with this. I understand they're advertising, but they're being videoed. Here's my problem, because video is probably wasn't available when I did it before. Maybe it was, I don't know. Kirsten, you may have to chime in here. You're going to be going through a series of questions, but whatever y'all pick are from the last one, and there's an unfair advantage if the guy comes at 8 o'clock to the person, or woman, I might add, to the person that comes at 1, who could have the opportunity to see the video, or even sit in here, or have somebody sit in here. So how do you work that out? Okay. Okay.
Sorry, I'm not sure I couldn't hear if Latricia had answered your question.
She said they don't have to video, they don't have to live video the thing. You know, so
they can't watch a video,
they can't, but it's public, correct? There's no
Right.
way we can do one.
but they can sit in
They're
here
here,
for
they're
8
here.
hours. Yeah,
Yes, they can.
they're public.
Yeah. That was one of my question was, could this be one of those shade meetings?
No, this doesn't qualify for a shade meeting.
So there's no way around it. So.
You all interview them together. You got to invite the members of the
I
public.
can wait over there until it's time to come here. We can put up a note and we can put up a sign on the door that says, ask them to wait on the other room. They don't have to, but they have.
I'm talking about that. Somebody please wait.
Me too.
Mayor, sorry, we can't hear you.
As they
And the
arrive,
applicants sit in this room.
During the interview.
I would ask them not to. I would put a sign on the door that asks them.
This person and the applicants
Yes,
sit
they
in
can.
this room.
Yes, they can.
Mr. Mayor, you got to get closer to the mic. She can't hear you.
Miss Kirsten, can the applicants sit in this room? Or do we have the right to tell them, no, you can't be in here?
For the applicants, you can tell the applicants that they cannot come into the
Thank you.
into the room until it's their time.
My whole thing just of this was to get down to the finalists. You know, if we get down to 1 or 2 that we're deciding upon, is that's when I would like to see staff interview them, not to interview each of the ones. that we have.
Can you clarify? You said that So we're going to interview 7 people to get down to 1 or 2.
Or if we go,
Hopefully we just
if
come
it
up with
takes
a
more.
If we're going to interview 7 people, we need to get down to 1.
And that was
Either that or
one of
else
my
or-
questions is that
It's
day
just-
that you do the interviews, can you also put on the agenda potential picking of that applicant, of that person? So in other words, you do the interviews, right? And at the end of those interviews, can we have an agenda item? But that's my question. Are we having a meeting or you have an interview?
You have an interview, but if you're going to vote, you have to have a meeting.
So basically, we have to have another meeting after your interview to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the calendar in my head. That's all.
And if we do a 45-minute interview and have a 15-minute break between each one, that's what I would try to do.
I like that.
Can it be done at a regular council meeting? So even if
Voting
you,
on who
Are you
select,
asking
yes.
Kirsten?
I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay. Can you be specific so
Yeah.
you can have the
Can-
correct answer?
Yeah, if let's say that we interview people on the 27th, just trying to provide some guidance here, and we do the other night they do is the 20th. Of course, that's a holiday. So if you interview everybody on the 27th, I hope that's not a holiday. No, I just want to know what the process is so we can be prepared for it. So if I know that we're doing the 27th, then what I'm thinking is if you do your interviews on the 27th, we have to have an agenda item on the 4th to either do additional interviews or make a motion to pick the city manager, new city manager. See what I'm saying? How are you going to do it?
Call a special meeting after the Monday last interview and have a special meeting with that on the agenda.
I'm fine with that. Yeah, I think that would be a great idea because that's in the only topic. We won't feel like we need to be rushed through it. So
Can I
Yes,
make a suggestion so that in order to keep the meeting as short as possible and also as civil as possible, that we rank each our choice from, if let's say 6 people show up for the interview, that we rank the 6 and that we all agree prior to that we only discuss the top 2, like totaled, not our top 2, but that we rank, and whoever scores the highest points amongst everybody, that would be the top 2, and that we only discuss, I'm throwing out the top 2, but it could be the top 3, whatever you guys decide, but that we don't discuss all 6 when we come to the meeting, because we will be here for way too much time, and we'll get lost in the weeds, in my opinion.
Right.
That should be at the special meeting.
At the special, like when we come or prior to the special meeting where we're going to decide who we are going to offer the position to, that each of us ranks the candidates that we interviewed, and based on that, we only discuss the top 2.
Right.
Top. Are you guys comfortable with
2
top
is
2?
fine.
Top 2 candidates. That if the others, the bottom 4, did not make that top 2 in our assessment, that Brooke can give us a little sheet or however, and then she can organize it so we know exactly who we're discussing when we come in, and we only discuss those 2.
So the reason why I'm getting into the weeds is because Brooke will not be here.
Very then.
So that's why I'm trying to get this thing hammered out tonight as to what our process will be. And not to interrupt you, but if Brooke will be, yeah.
Desertion.
So then I would say that you're going to have your special meeting and pick your whatever the ones you're going to pick. You make your decision then. Just keep in mind now, additionally on top of that, person has to formally accept it. You have to decide whether or not there's going to be a background investigation and how we're going to do that. And then the second thing is that the person, whoever you give them a conditional offer of employment, is going to have to submit you a contract. And that contract's going to have to be reviewed and voted on, which I guess could be done at a special meeting or at the other one. Mine was fairly easy because you'd seen it before. Some minor changes. I don't know that the new person you pick will have that same luxury, or y'all won't. Maybe they'll give you something totally different. So that's kind of the process. So conditional offer of employment, background investigation, they submit their contract. They can turn in their contract whenever they want to, for the most part, once you give them a conditional offer of employment. And then, then you accept the contract and start your new city manager. So there's other steps to this. That's why.
Give them a contract instead of giving to that one.
You can do that too. You can absolutely do that.
And it says what we wanted to say,
Yeah.
not what they wanted to say.
Can we get references from those that did not supply references within their package prior to
All of
our
them
evac? I'm
have
sorry.
references. We have those.
Oh, you have them already.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we send out? You've actually talked to people, or
No,
We have
ma'am.
not.
you
spoken
just
about it.
took what they sent?
Took what they said.
Mm.
I did verify some colleges that did not quite meet the educational standard in the United States of America. So those people were not included. So it is what it is.
So you say we have references, not names on the sheet, but actual.
Yeah, they submitted actual people, names, addresses, phone numbers.
But not
So
letters
my
of
question
reference.
is,
Some did submit letters of references. Yes.
we need letters of reference to see what people are
Well,
actually
I don't
saying
know.
about these folks.
Yeah, the ones that were in the 15 or so that we gave you, those references should have been. You got everything we got for the applicants. So the question would be: is any of the other applicants that there are no references in there? They did not supply.
Right.
Some may have given us telephone numbers and names to call, but all the letters that they submitted with their application, you got.
So can we get a reply from their references
Yeah.
or check references?
And
We
I think
absolutely
probably
can.
need to do background checks.
Ooh,
We can start on the top 9 of the ones that you chose to move forward for interviews. We can start contacting references to get that information
Yeah.
back
thanks,
prior,
Brooke. I appreciate
hopefully prior to
Yeah.
hopefully the 27th.
it. Okay.
The background check
Is that-
is a little more stricter. Unless I'm wrong, you have to have a conditional offer of employment and approval of the candidate to do the background check, which is included in the conditional offer. Now, I will tell you, you want to be a police officer in the city, it's intrusive. Background check. You want to be an employee for the city, it's a brush on top of, what remaining hair you may have in your past.
The city manager needs to be available.
Well, we're going to have to see just how legally far we can dig. Any open source document we can most certainly find for you and include it. I mean, it's out there. It's on the internet. You have to make sure it's that applicant. But it would be that hard. It's just as easy as you're checking an accredited college. It takes me a couple of steps to do that. I know in certain cases the police department does the background check on them.
So can we now? Are we done with
Yeah,
that
we're
portion?
done.
Can we now discuss the number of questions we're going to have?
Yeah.
How many of you guys feel are a good number of
Well, we
questions?
can send you a copy of what was asked before.
Okay. Okay.
Also, can I just add, since some people are new to this, on September the 8th, 2020, on the agenda there was discussion with possible action of a new city manager for the city of Williston. If you'd like, I can send you the minutes so that way you can have an idea of what was done. If you'd like.
Yes, please.
That would be
I
everybody.
can say in reference to the questions, what I have noticed and Mr. Brevard and I have discussed it, is that there is not a scoring on those questions. It's just a list of the questions is what we have. And then I would have to go back to those meetings in Ms. Wright's knowledge on the 2020 interviews on how it was ranked, because none of the questions that we have for the interviews of the previous city managers have any ranking. Do you remember, Ms. Jones?
I don't think we used a number. I think we wrote their answers down because there were spaces between the questions, and we
Yes,
just
ma'am.
took notes of our own between it, and at the end we ranked that person. Sometimes if you rank each individual section, you end up with a skewed number.
Correct. I agree. Okay.
So it's almost
So if
better
that's the
to
way
look
that
at
you
the whole thing
would like to
for it.
proceed. Okay. So if that's how you would like to proceed, I can email you all tomorrow the list of the questions. We'll combine the common questions between both previous interviews, and I can email them out so you can at least see what we're looking at, and then
The
we can
questions
go
should have
from
all
there.
been the same.
Ma'am,
I was saying the questions should have all been the same.
We asked every candidate.
you would, yes, ma'am. I would say they should be, but from what I remember looking at both of them, I don't believe that both of the
So what she's referring to, Brooke, is you have two separate questions. Two different, like 20 questions from this time we hired somebody, and there's 20 questions from this time we hired somebody. So the
Okay.
question is you cross-reference them and see what those questions are to see if they're all the same.
And when you send them to us, if there's something particularly we want to
You can
know,
send it
should
back.
we tell you what that is?
Yeah.
Because like when I looked at all these applications, there were 5 or 6 basic things that I made sure I looked for. And some things, of course, more important than others, but that I really wanted to know. You know, like
So what we would
And that's
need
fine.
if we send these out, what we would need is a quick turnaround on it. So if we send you all the questions and you say, I've looked at both of these, actually we'll crosswalk them, send whatever there is, it's all new questions. And then, you say, okay, well, you haven't asked this question. So we're going to need a pretty quick turnaround back from y'all so we can send it back out to everybody else and say, are y'all okay with us adding this question?
So what's the number of questions per interview that they have?
Brooke?
I want to say it was maybe, there was a couple pages, so I want to say it was more than 10 questions, so it might have been under 20 or under questions, which is quite a few questions.
That's too many.
and some people will give
And
you a
I
short
would agree
answer.
with
It's
that.
still-
So,
it's-
first thing in the morning,
It's
we
still
can,
too many.
For 45 minutes, an
So
hour.
it should
yeah.
be 10 or less.
So what if? Sorry.
No, you're fine.
So what if we look at the list, and look at the questions, but yet you want to ask a couple of questions that aren't on the list? What's the procedure for that?
you need to ask them across the board. You can't
Right,
single
it would
one
be across
applicant
the
out.
board, but if you just want to
And
have
that's
it
why I
added.
think that the quick turnaround on the questions, like I said, tomorrow morning, that can be the priority. We can sit down, put all the questions together, send them out, and if there's specific questions, if there's specific questions that are more relevant to how you want to ask, or the questions that you want to ask that's more relevant to the position, then we can absolutely add those in, resend it out, get the clarification, and then those can be our set of questions. But I think our baseline needs, obviously, I believe that we're all in agreement, needs to be across the board, the same questions, just what are the relevant questions that we really want to ask. So, like I said, I'll go ahead and put it together tomorrow morning, send it out, and hopefully they will cover what we're all thinking.
Brooke, can I ask a favor too, since this is my first go around? Protocol for us as council members during the interview, if there's guidelines, I don't know if that was in the binder that I have here that you gave us at the beginning for do's and don'ts during the interview process. I didn't realize we weren't allowed to ask different questions of different candidates. Just that's news to me as of now. So I would just like to make sure I don't put a foot wrong in the interview process.
Absolutely. I can put together some of the do's and don'ts in the guidelines for the interviewing, and it might be in the packet that I gave you. I'll double check it, and absolutely, I can send that out so we're all on the same page. Yes, ma'am.
And then, can I ask one thing too, Kirsten? I know you're still online, so Brooke, is it something you and Kirsten can also discuss? Because I'm sure she has some suggestions.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to look over anything.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. You had to come up to the podium.
Meredith's question. So I would think, if you needed more clarification, that there obviously might be questions that you ask one candidate that you wouldn't ask another, depending on what their answer was. So, and then my second question is, can you, at some point in time, give a time frame or timeline of what, I know you kind of talked a little bit about what that's going to look like. So being one of the people that you got.
Yeah, I kind of
When
agree
you say timeline, what specifically are you talking about? Well, they're. I don't think they've said it yet, unless I missed it. Did I? Yeah. That is really going to be going to drive everything. So y'all need to give us a date that you want to do the question on.
I thought 27th was the date.
I mentioned it.
That works for me.
I think we all
I
agree.
put it on there. I don't know if it works for the rest of you.
Can I just give you a time frame of what we did in 2020? In 2020, on September the 8th, 2020, we did a discussion with possible action of hiring a city manager. On September the 15th, we had an emergency meeting of employment of new city manager. And then on September the 16th, we presented that new city manager with a contract.
In September, what year?
2020.
You could stay for next month or two.
No. So, who was that? Was that?
It was Mr. Hyatt at the time. That's who they had chosen.
Okay.
Stayed out that long. I think I missed him. I remember it.
So where? Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. No, you jump in. So where are we on this business? A, B, C, or D? Well, we're done with A.
We're on C.
We're on C. I thought we were still discussing the process. The interview process.
So what I would say, the only thing that I think that we need the clarification on is we want all the interviews in person.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we have the interviews in person. We have the top 9, I believe. Is that what we discussed? 1, 2, 3, 7. The top 7. Miss Ballou and myself will revisit all the numbers to make sure that we're accurate in what we discussed, and then we have the date. So I guess it would be now just the time in which we would like to start.
And real quick, just to clarify with fellow council members, if of the top 7, some do not make it, we're not pulling from below that cutoff. Then we just reduce the number. Okay, just want to make sure we're all on the same page about that. That it's 7 or less.
Correct.
Understand? Yes, ma'am. So I guess we would just be looking at what time we would like to start interviews, and then we can move forward with getting them set up for that Monday,
9 o'clock?
the 27th, correct?
Not 9 o'clock.
That's too early.
Too
I'm
early?
just joking. I'm just joking.
I started at 8 o'clock. Too early for me, but 9 o'clock.
I was thinking of 6:30.
I know you're an early bird.
Whatever works.
9 o'clock.
I hadn't rolled over yet.
Okay, so we're looking at 9 o'clock with a 15-minute break between them and scheduled for an hour.
Yeah.
Is that
45-minute interview, 15 minutes.
45-minute, 15-minute break? Got it.
And a
Starting
lunch,
on the
and lunch.
27th at 9.
Do we need 15 or can we just do 10?
It's better
It,
to keep
it,
it
it
on the
can't,
hour.
you can't finish early so you don't.
It's better to keep it on the hour. For the
Correct.
scheduling.
I think that is all the information that we needed to move forward with. Like I said, we will put together the questions, send them out. Ms. Blue and myself will come up with providing the procedures for the interviewing process that Ms. Martin requested. And I think the only other one was Ms. Hines with the references. Is that we still want to move forward with getting that information as much as that we can get prior to the interviews?
Yes, ma'am, please.
And I think that's all we really needed to be able to move forward with the process. Terry, was there anything else that I've missed?
Talking to me, Brooke?
Yes, sir. Was there anything else that
I think
we needed?
It doesn't take
that?
long to call a special meeting, so I would say do your interviews. And, the following 4th, the mayor can call an emergency meeting pretty quickly. 3 members of council can call it. Advertisement, how long? 12 hours. I like that short notice. So that's not as dire as like any of the other stuff we got coming up. So if y'all want to decide on the 27th, y'all want to set a special meeting at a certain time, the mayor honestly can call for a special meeting quicker. Not quicker, but you're all here. You could all do it, but just keep that in mind that maybe on that date we look at a special meeting day. I don't think you're ready to pick one tonight. Could, I guess, but well,
We might not be through with the interviews.
no, I think well, you can. I mean, I was not thinking the same day. In other words, you have what you're saying is, it's like, I'm okay with. You have the interviews, you end them, and you start a special meeting. Question is, do you have to have a time or what?
After you set the interviews, you'll know the time. Because you may have somebody who can't come till 5 o'clock.
Yeah, what I'm saying, do you want to have that special meeting that night after the interviews?
I don't know.
Well,
So,
no.
If, I said so. So if we set a time as to when we are interviewing, we let people know that these are the times we're interviewing. What time can you make? I can't get there until. Yeah. So these are the times that we're interviewing.
Yeah.
Are you available?
Which slot do you want?
Well, then you
9,
got to
10,
keep.
11.
Then you're gonna have to keep notifying the candidates who hasn't replied. Well, this person's got this slot, or vice versa,
Well,
or
you
this
send it
one
all
wants
out to
this.
them at one time. Whoever responds is full. Is full.
Name it, and that's their job.
I agree with you, Mr. Mayor.
Now, may I ask you a question?
Yes, sir. You may.
Did I hear Kirsten say that she was going to send you the questions, and that all the questions were going to be the same?
You heard Brooks say
Brooke
that.
say that.
Brooks said that.
Okay, so they're telling you what questions you will ask the candidate.
No,
They're the same ones we used before, I think.
I'm just asking. So if there's I didn't see whether it's questions.
Somebody asked that question already. At least she says there's more than 10, but not as many as 20.
Okay.
She couldn't exactly remember.
So you guys are going to have to divide up the questions.
It depends on how we decide to do it.
This whole idea of telling council what questions they can and
We're,
cannot
we're,
ask.
we're not doing that. And
That's
I don't know where you got that from.
We're
What we said
presenting
is
the question.
we were going to present them the questions that was asked last time. And I specifically said, and maybe you weren't in the room, that I need a quick turnaround time on these. So in case none of these work, Or if you go, I don't want to ask number 18, but I want to ask this one. And we're going to have to keep going around until we have the set questions that they want to ask. I mean, if they want us to send them none, I'm okay with that. I don't think they are.
I'm just trying to get an understanding of the process you're trying to create.
Yeah, the process, we agreed to send them the past two questions that, I hate to cover the ground we covered, but the past two questions from the last two city managers that were hired. And then basically they have to decide in a very quick, short notice. So they want to ask all these questions. We will crosswalk them to make sure there's not duplicates. And they'll have an opportunity with a quick turnaround time to tell us what they want to do and what other questions you want to ask. You know, and like I said, even if they come in here on the 27th, I could ask for, look, I need a cutoff date of the 24th so we can have all your questions for you. They could still come in on the 27th and say, I want to ask this question.
But just bear in mind, we said we will be asking 10 or less questions. So
Right,
it won't be
right. But, and I get that part. And y'all can strike through as many as you want. We're here to serve y'all, whatever you need. We're not driving anything. We didn't drive this. This was y'all's idea.
So we would be the ones given the questions to ask.
Normally during a questioning session, y'all will be given the questions back, right? Whatever ones you want, then each one of you pick a question. And you normally go through, you know me, I go by seniority. So, you know, Mr. Cox, you have the first question. Vice President Hines has the second. Councilmember Jones has the third. Meredith has the fourth. Alexa has the fifth. If the mayor's going to be involved in the process, no, he is not. So then we go around again. And now if you're only doing 10, each of you ask 2 questions.
Oh, okay. So to clarify, even if there are more than 10 questions on the list, but do we have to, and I guess this is my question for Brooke, do we have to ask exactly the same question of every single candidate?
Yes.
So of the list, I picked my maybe 2 questions that I feel like I would like to ask each candidate. And Deborah has her too. No, Dartmouth is shaking her head.
Right. So I think the one question is can you, as Mr. Cowart said, don't want to quote you too much, but can a question that you ask create another question just for that candidate?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I think you have to understand that. So
it becomes a discussion at that point.
Right.
It always does.
Can I
you want to pull out of them what they really their abilities are.
Can I give you a sample of some of the questions?
No. No, because somebody may be
Okay.
listening. No,
All right.
you can't give us. No.
Well, can I print it out and give it? Oh, well, never mind.
Yes.
Brooke's going to send it
Well,
to you.
yeah, that's what Brooke's going to
send it to you.
I
Okay.
just think that we should have the option. If there's a question not on there, we should be allowed to ask.
So an interview should not be a discussion.
If it has to do with
an interview should not be a discussion. You ask what you want to know, and they answer to the best of their abilities. It should not be a discussion.
But you won't find out anything about them if that's what you're doing.
You will find out what they give you. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, if we sit and we start, if we sit and we start having discussions, then somebody else can say that we led whomever the applicant is to the decision, and that's now we are hiring them based on that. To keep it nice, simple, and smooth, ask the question, let them answer, and move on to the next question.
I could tell you in our hiring process here, we ask specific questions and those specific questions of them.
Correct.
And we're very detailed. At least some of us are what they wrote. If they said yes, we wrote yes. If they said yes, however, boom, 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 you write it all out.
Yes, however.
Yeah. So I think my question is to Kirsten. I hate to keep going back to her or Brooke. If you ask question number 9, and from number 9, you have an additional question now from their response, is that okay?
Yes.
Yes, that's
Okay.
fine.
So I don't.
It does. You've
Well-
got to know your candidate.
But I think
You really do. Whether you think it's not an interview it is an interview for a job, but you're trying to learn this person that you don't know anything about. And you've got, for example, you say, I don't know, have you ever gone to the flea market in Homosassa? You don't want a yes or no answer. If they say, well,
Answer your question should
Exactly.
not be a closed answer. I mean, a closed question. It should be an open-ended question.
It should-
That way,
it should be, tell me about your experience with
that way they should be
you
able to
gotta,
elaborate.
exactly.
And my concern, I agree with Darfiness, my concern is that if one of us starts digging in and asking more and follow up, then it does not leave room for the other council members to comment.
It's whoever's asking the one question.
No, but to Meister Cox's point, if he asked his question and then he needed to ask another question, just using as an example, but then all of a sudden that starts to creep into the time that the other council members have to ask their preferred questions. So I think keeping it to one question is appropriate, so that we all
But you won't learn anything.
then we have to ask the right questions.
Oh, you're right. You do have to ask the one question, but you can't be so strict with it that you don't learn about the person. Because that's the whole point, is you're trying to figure out who they are and what they know and how they're going to help you.
Looking at these questions, I would suspect that anybody that is a good fit for the city and really has experience when they're asked a question, even if it's yes or no, will give you a lengthy explanation as to what their meaning, what their yes is. This is my feeling, that I think once you get that answer, you're probably not going to have any more questions, right? I think if somebody just says, yes, sitting there, that's it, they've lost an opportunity to tell you something about them. So,
Correct.
But that may be what they think you want, unless you ask the question.
Why should I hire you right now?
That's exactly a question we need to ask them.
If they sit there and they look at you, they have to think about it.
We need
If
to ask
they're
them.
quick,
That's one of the questions. Why should I hire you? That's exactly.
if they're quick in the response, that's the kind of what, if it's a citizen or somebody
So
like
thanks
that.
for telling them what one of the questions is. So we
Well,
have to make
that's
sure
using
that
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 as
one
a
is not
sample.
on the question list.
That's why I say, can you ask a question outside of the realm, something that they're not going to expect? That's why I was just asking.
I'm really sorry, Ms. Jones, I didn't realize that you weren't finished. I just want to give some guidance here. We have a set question list for candidates because of all of the pro reasons that have been said. One, it helps to structure the timing of the interview. Two, it helps ensure that everyone has an equal opportunity to share things about themselves that they want to share. And three, it gives the council a way to sort of compare apples to apples. But it doesn't have to be to the letter. The other thing that I want to make very clear is this has all happened before, so I don't want anyone to be so stressed about letting the questions out, because we're going to be using questions that are at least similar to questions that we've used before, and none of that is secret. That's all public record. So I just don't want anyone to be terribly stressed about, oh no, I leaked a question, because it's just not like that.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
4 times 9 is 36. That's correct. Yeah, that's true. I know, but and we rotate too. Some of these people won't talk. They'll say a one letter answer, just like Terry said, and some of them are going to tell us all about it.
So that will be 5 questions. At 9 minutes.
It'd be 5
So-
5 minutes,
so-
5 minutes, 5 minutes,
So
5 minutes.
so that's what he was saying.
I know, but I don't think you get access to the time on it. It may talk 30 seconds this time and 6 minutes this
Okay.
time. You can't just turn them off.
All right. So I do believe we have a motion.
It's a whole lot easier than it sounds, y'all. It sounds.
Miss Stacy, did we do B as far as?
We did all of that.
All right. Okay. On B, solid. All right. C, discussion with possible action. City manager applicant dates. We did that. So,
Did it by
get 'em.
consensus, right? Yeah, we just did it by consensus.
Okay. All right. Then I guess we're dropped down to item 4, public participation. Anybody in the public? Anybody online, Mr. Any announcements? Staff?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett? Nope. Okay. Ms. Wright?
I have to, Thursday night at 6 o'clock, Mr. Fuller will be giving a presentation about Guyana. So if you aren't doing anything, please come out, and it should be very interesting. And then Saturday night, I have tickets for the MLK Gala. If you'd like to purchase a ticket, it's $40 a ticket, and it starts at 6.
Okay. Mr. Mayor?
Guyana. Guyana. The country Guyana. Yeah, the country Guyana. Okay. Mr. Fuller built a park over there. He built a park, and they named it after it.
He's a fascinating individual.
I've seen pictures. It's so pretty.
Council got any announcements?
No, that's all I have.
All right. All right. Gonna get a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Got a first, got a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
5-0. Those opposed? It is